Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 365, and today we're going to be doing battle with scouts. And so 365, a full year of these things, right? To try to put out one of these every day of the week. I know we miss a day or two along the way, but essentially an entire full year of doing the battles with Bust. It's been a nice transition away from the lands of expedition and into this space of playing constructed. And I did a little bit of math. It's tough for me to do math. I don't do it very well. But if you take that 365 hours, divide it by 24, then you're getting up to a full 15 weeks of, or 15 days of bust. Some of you out there have spent an entire 2 weeks of your life just dedicated and devoted to listening to this dumb play a little bit of constructed, and that's amazing and wild. And so if you've been with us for a while, if you've been here from the expedition days, or if you picked up on us at the beginning of the constructed days, glad to have you. If you're new to the channel, new to the things that we're doing here, glad to have everyone as well. And so, Scouts, I felt like this was a appropriate deck to be bringing for the 1 year anniversary, if you will. This is one of the decks that I really kind of latched onto as we made the jump into Constructed, and one of the decks we took to the first few seasonal tournaments. And so it's kind of nice and fun to have the deck resurge and be another meta relevant deck. And so it's pretty interesting in the space right now. And so in our previous video, we were taking a look at the Kaisa deck. That's a deck that's really kind of tuned and built to be beating up on Tristana. And that is exactly not what you're getting out of Scouts. Scouts is a deck that's going to get completely annihilated by Tristana. And so if you're looking towards this as a deck for your best of three lineup, you need to really be considering what you're going to be using your bans on. We've really been taking this space as to where I'm looking to actually play against Tristana and then just ban out one of the control decks. You can't really do that with Scouts. With Scouts, you're going to be looking to play against decks like Deep. You're going to be looking to play against decks like Darkness. You're kind of having your coin tossy matchups be things like Karma Sett, and then you're looking to actually ban out Tristana. And so keep that in mind if this is a deck you're looking to add into your best of three lineup as we are rapidly approaching the Runeterra Open. You got to really pick and choose what you're looking to go up against, and that's very easy to kind of fit Scouts into a lineup to where it just doesn't make sense. And so, if you're looking to just play it though, want to grind some ladder with one of the old classics, this is a deck that's very heavily built on champion strength. This is going to be, if you're thinking towards the Tristana decks that are really popular now, they're able to flood the board with all of their card generation. And so you have the Bandle Commando, you have the Grandfather Fae, those are generating the Hungry Owlcats, you have the Bandle City Mayor generating a unit as well, and then you're able to just keep the board completely full off of that card generation. Scouts does it a little bit differently. You have a little bit of unit generation between the likes of Mirai Warden and Island Navigator. Those are a couple of units that can put two units on the board at the same time. But beyond that, you're actively trying to control the board with challenges. And so you're not really getting two units out of a Fleet Feather Tracker. You're not getting two units out of a Petricite Broadwing. But the kind of idea with these is you say have a misfortune on the board. You attack with your Fleet Feather Tracker. You take off a 1 health unit because of the misfortune ability, and then on your next attack you say take down a 3 health unit. Or if you're attacking with the Petricite Broadwing on its own, maybe it gets to kill a 2/2, and then on your next attack it gets to kill a 1 health unit. And so you're really looking to build up the board in a different way, but the end goal is very similar as to what you would get out of the Tristana Demacia decks, as to where you're ultimately trying to get this completely full board, drop a champion strength, and then annihilate the opponent from there. Where things get a little bit different are going to be some of the journey, as I like to call it, right? The end goal is kind of the same, but the journey is where things can get a little bit different. And where things are kind of interesting with Misfortune are, as we say, look at a deck like Karma Sett that's really trying to limit your ability by stunning down a unit. You can't stun Misfortune and have her be irrelevant, right? And so if you're taking that mindset and looking towards Tristana, you drop a Concussive Palm on Tristana. She can't attack and she's kind of useless at this point. But if you're dropping stuns onto Misfortune, or if she can't find a board that's particularly juicy to attack into, or you're worried about your opponent having a quicksand or a combat trick or whatever, Misfortune still gets to provide a lot of value, even though she may not be able to actively attack. And so that's one of the kind of nice differences that you'll see between this deck and the Tristana ones, is that we have units that are very useful even if we aren't attacking. And so we'll keep that in mind as these games go on. And then this does also have the nice scout package attached to it, to where we're able to just get a big board full of scouts and give them a big unit boost, whether or not that's with Misfortune's attacks or with a 4 Demacia generated off of a Vanguard Sergeant or off of a Genevieve, boosting all of our units. A lot of easy ways to get multiple advantages out of those bonus stats. And so the way we always kind of describe this is it's better to give 3 of your units a bonus than just 1. And then if you're giving, say, a scout unit a bonus, that's kind of like giving 2 units a bonus, right? Since it gets to attack twice. A nice, easy way to get a little bit of double value. And so that's the deck. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Let's go ahead, jump on in. This was the Tank Busters list. As a very adept player out of the NA region. He's making those top cuts. I'm pretty sure he participated in Worlds in this past season. I'm not certain where he's from. It's probably just Brazil, right? That's just that's just the easiest guess on the planet, as to you don't know where a player's from, but they're exceptionally good. Where is it? Probably Brazil. It's a it's a very easy guess to make, and you'll be right very frequently. But on to the battles. We're up against the Demacia version of Tristana. The thing that we're going to be looking to do here is we don't really want to be throwing away our units. And so the opposing deck is very good if they're able to just generate a bunch of trades. We're going to try and limit that and actually come out here and just pick up the combats where we win. And so I don't really get excited about trading this Fleet Feather Tracker into the Blast Cone Seedling, but if we can, say, start getting some Petricite Broadwing hooks to where we get the full board and then get to play a Vanguard Sergeant, that's a little bit better of an angle for the attacks we're looking to make. So I'm going to go ahead and heavy metal this Grandfather Fey. This is a unit as to where, next turn we would like to get to attack with Vanguard Sergeant. We like to attack with the Petricite Broadwing. If the opponent's out here dropping 3 attack owls, then we just get that taken away from us. And so we're gonna try and limit that here if we can. This is a very interesting attack from the opponent. This isn't a particularly strong one. And I like the fact that we're going to be able to come down next turn, drop 2 units, and then still probably get a kill on one of his. Like, what's his preferred unit this next turn? It's going to be like a Bandle City Mayor. And if we get the takedown on the Mayor with the Broadwing and then punch in some damage, that's still a pretty good round for us. Now Quinn turns up. Okay. Interesting thing to take note of here is our ability to get this 4 Demacia off of the board. It's going to be much better with Quinn and the Valor on the board. We could consider starting to bank the mana, but we're going to be kind of far away from it, right? If we had a start to where we were starting with a bunch of attune units, we could really look to get this turn 6 4 Demacia online, but it's not going to be here. It's not ready to line up. All right, now it looks like opponent wants to play their Bandle City Mayor, and they say, uh-oh. Uh-oh, bust unit's too big. That's not good. All right, Combat Cook comes down. And so one of the kind of interesting spaces with this was, if opponent wants to build up to a champion's strength, they don't have any units on the board. And so it is kind of nice to keep their board empty as a way to, again, if you want to play champion strength, you prefer to play it onto 6 units instead of just 1. And we haven't really taken too well to this strategy of keeping the board limited, but we have taken pretty well to canceling their big game ender. All right, Tristana comes on board. A little scary. She's definitely strong. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the Quinn. She shouldn't be getting into combat, and opponent's going to attack like 100% of the time, so we could wait till after they attack, but Cataclysm is the card they'd be playing to kill our Quinn here. And so with this, I do want to hang on to our challengers. We definitely want to get this Tristana off of the board. And so we're going to have to say use a Valor and then a Fleet Feather Tracker to try and get the takedown on her, as we don't have the stats right now to just let this go. Yeah. Bummer. All right, but and we're going to build up a pretty nice board this round. Hopefully we'll be able to get some takedowns on this Tristana. It's kind of scary. Like, this is actually a very tempting turn to just pass. Like, if he doesn't play any cards here, do we ever just outright lose the game? And that's close. That's close. All right, well, we gotta do something to get these units out of here. Can't go into next turn and just let him champion strength. That's such a gigantic blast of damage from Tristana. Not certain we'd be able to survive it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and bring the attack in here. I don't want these impacts getting picked up as it is. We'll see if we can't get some takedowns. If he's got a combat trick or something, we probably just lose the game. But this feels like our best avenue to victory. Yep. It's had all the answers at every turn. It's actually pretty scary if he wants to put the amulet onto the Tristana. Okay, that'll do it. GG. Very tough match. As we said at the beginning, this is really a deck you're looking to take into best of 3, and then the idea with this is you're going to just be banning Tristana. It's not a particularly good matchup. But that's not to say I don't think this deck can't be a decent ladder grinder. I think you can hit Masters with pretty much anything now. But the Tristana decks, again, it's like as you play Runeterra and you're like, oh, this is just clearly the best deck in the format. What's the play rate on it? 10%. And so it's most certainly, even if you have really terrible matchups, you can still grind your way past it and get up to Masters. But man, there was some interesting stuff happening these days. I saw in the lands of Magic that the Magic Pro Tour was over this past weekend, and they just announced that they're extending the standard format out an additional year. And so I thought that was quite relevant as we were in this space of the Runeterra rotation hitting and being the big topic and point that people are just going to come out and complain and have big feelings about. And it was the exact same thing happening with Magic. I thought that it was not unexpected for me, but I felt like it was kind of interesting to get to see it in action as we just went through that in Runeterra. And so a lot of people really up in arms, a lot of people really into it. With Magic, it's always kind of a different space given that the cards are so expensive. If we want to say, look at Runeterra, the cards all have kind of a fixed price, just whatever it is in terms of like wild cards and stuff, and the monetization system is so different since everyone is typically with Magic you're looking to sell packs, but with Runeterra you're looking to sell cosmetics, and so they have a little bit more flexibility. But as we start to look at Magic and them extending out the point of Standard. Standard is the format that was kind of the money maker for the local game store, right? So if you put together a modern deck or you put together a legacy deck, you could just play that deck, kind of indefinitely. The meta might adapt and change to where the deck isn't going to be particularly good, but in terms of like the long term, you could probably just get away with making that one deck and sitting on it forever. But with Standard rotating so frequently, that wasn't quite the case. And so I'm curious if that's how things are still going to be with Magic, or if how things really adapt and change now that the cards have a little bit more longevity. But my understanding was that with Magic, you had you had this space to where people just don't play Standard anymore, and they kind of get caught into the legacy formats, and then they just had to do something in terms of bringing in more players. All right, but reasonable enough space here. We're just gonna build up to this champion strength on turn 7. Well, I want to get as many scouts on the board as we can until that gets here, but we're at this point of the game to where we're running out of space, right? We only get to put 6 units on the board, and so we just got to kind of trade away what we can so that we aren't just sitting with 1,000,000 mana in our hands. But we should be in pretty good shape here. Actually hit a pretty interesting card with the Daring Poro, as you can give it Scout and the +4/+4. Having that 5 attack elusive unit can be a pretty big deal. I know opponent has an elusive of their own, but that gives us a space to where we can maybe hook the Bandle Commando out of combat and then still be able to hit in with these elusives. So another interesting one is the Pouty Poro. As we hit it with the champion strength, it's going to pick up Overwhelm. I don't think we need to overwrite anything here. Opponent's going to attack. We can just block whatever and then refill our board after the fact. I don't think we need to play Genevieve, as we can put 3 units on the board afterwards. I guess as long as we can make trades where we want. I know we're going to throw stuff in front of Tristana, but yeah, let's just let this go. So he's not going to let us actually win any of these combats, but not the biggest deal. So the units we want to get rid of are going to be the Poro. We're fine to get rid of these smaller units like this. Let's actually just we want to get rid of the Challenger. The formidable unit really drops in value with the champion strength, so I think it's okay to lose out on the Broadwing. Now we can add Tracker Poro, and then champion strength to start next turn. All right, let's have some fun. Opponent doesn't have the mana to do their own champion strength here, so we should be in pretty good shape. Good shape it is. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Like I don't have a dog in the fight anymore in terms of Magic, but I'm not certain. I know the pandemic had a very large effect on Magic, especially in terms of the Friday night Magic space. And apparently Standard is still the most popular format on Magic Online, but it's that space of having your local game stores stay open and do well. You can't go to Walmart and play and play in a Friday night Magic, and so I'm kind of curious with all of the reasoning and everything going into it. All right, but up against Alawi Jarvan, another fairly bad matchup for us. Scouts always had trouble with decks like Pantheon that were able to just kind of ignore your wall of units. If you want to think that both players have 20 stats of units on the board at the end of the game, and a deck like Pantheon or Varus has their 20 stats all tied into a single unit with Overwhelm, to where Scouts has like 4 or 5 different units on the board soaking up all of its stats, Scouts just tended to lose out since we couldn't deal enough damage fast enough, and then they would get that big unit on the board and be able to just overwhelm through. And so we're going to struggle a little bit here against Alawi as well. Kind of like that Tristana matchup, not to say it's unwinnable, but it's definitely got some weakness to it. All right, now interesting spot on this next turn. It's like, do we want to go ahead and drop the Broadwing, or do we want to play the Grumble Slug that's then going to let us get the potential form up. Now that he loads Eye of the Thing, whatever this is, Eye of God onto the Tentacle, being able to get the 4/4 Grumble Slug and get a takedown here is just too good. This might be enough to outright win the game on its own. I don't think this deck plays stuff like Chain Vest. It may, but that's a big boost to our board, getting the takedown on that. It takes him quite a while to get that Tentacle back up and running. Okay, more than happy to take this hook. We can ideally clear out the Badger Bear next turn with a Make It Rain. So, you're gonna single combat us? Rip Misfortune? Is that what's about to happen? Not yet. I wonder if that was a single combat. You could see the card kind of come into the middle, and then they took it away. If we get the chance to respond with a Make It Rain to counterspell the single combat, that's a pretty big deal. He has some reason to wait, right? If he wants to single combat in the middle, on the Misfortune, he's going to deal 3 damage to Misfortune. And then the Badger Bear would die in the combat, so our bird would have survived. I'm curious. It still feels like he's got that kind of wound up and ready to, to cause us some problems. And so we could still get all of our dudes on board. And Broadwing, Marai Warden. We have the 2 mana for the Make It Rain, and then next turn we'll be ready with Genevieve. Wings in the Wave is a bit of a dud to hit here, but I think we're still okay. He did definitely build up his board and potentially prevent this Make It Rain from hitting, right? He's got 2 additional dudes now to make it a little bit more challenging, but we're not giving up on this. Maintains that mana still. So I'm thinking to myself here how we want to go about this. I initially thought, well, you know, we could just hook in Genevieve, and then it's like, well, we have the Genevieve, or we could hook in an Idol because that's a free combat. We can look to hook in the Badger Bear. I don't think we want to hook in the Badger Bear, right? Like, I'm still riding high on this idea that the opponent's going to try and single combat the Badger Bear into Misfortune, and then if that's the case, I don't really want to just throw her away. That's a bit of a wasted attack. So I think we want to actually come in and just attack Alawi. And so it's like, even if things go completely wrong here, we should get the kill onto Alawi while our Genevieve survives. And then we can look to mess with this Badger Bear a little bit later. Here comes, right? I'm curious if we actually want to drop the Make It Rain, though. That's what's going to be kind of the curveball here. I don't think it's worth it. Oh, interesting. He goes after the Genevieve. So what's our chances to hit this? Like a coin flip? But if we hit the coin flip, we'd probably just win the game. We hit. Good job, fam. I don't know how that math exactly works out. I don't think it's exactly a coin flip, but he has 6 targets and we get to hit 3 of them. And so that sounds pretty close to me. That was enough for the victory. GG. Some nerd out there being like, it's only a 48% chance bust. You saw earlier, I had to pull out the calculator just to do some basic mathematics. There's no way we're going to know the statistics on that one. And all right, up against Samira Fizz. This is the deck I'm actually looking to move into the best of 3. I feel like as we approach the open tournament, we're going to run into a spot to where people are just kind of ready for the bruiser decks, and I think it's a little scary to be bringing in things like Pantheon, and I'm going to be looking more towards our Samira offering being this aggro deck instead of Samira Pantheon or Samira Varus. And so I still haven't fully decided how deep we're going to go, but I'm still in that spot to where I feel like in best of 3, you really want to be playing both both Samira and Tristana, and then the way that you go about that's kind of up to you. But you most certainly want all of those champions to be a part of your lineup. All right, so how are we gonna handle this one here? This was a absolutely horrific mulligan, right? As we hit the double champion strength plus a 5-drop, it's fixed itself a little bit, running into misfortune in the Broadwing, but it's still fairly scary here. I'm just gonna not say that we're all in at this point, but I want to be a little bit more aggressive with our mana. I don't really want to take this 3-bank into the next turn. I want to be able to, if we pick up a 1-drop or a 2-drop next turn, like if we pick up a Grumble Slug or if we pick up a Shell Shocker even, I want to be able to play both units, as to where if we drop the Broadwing here, and then we draw a 2-drop next turn, we may not be able to get everyone on board. So we got to come in and prevent the damage. Very close to dying. Ideally, again, we'll pick up a small unit, be able to drop the Broadwing and get a hook onto Fizz. But my expectations for this game are low as we start with three pretty unplayable cards.
The weak don't deserve mercy. Every work demands a piece of ourselves.
All right, well, this is where the battles end. We can't come in with the units being so large at this point. But if we can make it into next turn and get Quinn on board and the opponent not have any elusives, we've got a very reasonable board. I mean, I'm interested in, say, on this next turn, if we say drop like Marai Warden and take the 3-bank and then try and win with Champion Strength 2 turns from now, I feel like that's kind of on the table. We didn't pick up a unit that fits that narrative, but I think we could have definitely had some pretty big plays if we make it to the next turn. And Samira. Okay. Well, we can definitely get out of this turn without dying. We have a lot of very good blocks across the board, and opponent's down to 1 card in hand, and so things are looking upward if we can just survive for a little bit. I'd say like Misfortune's most certainly going to die this round, but we still have Quinn and we have another Misfortune in hand, and so might be able to make a little magic happen. Interesting. Why didn't he hook our Misfortune?
That's far enough. Stay still.
Is this where we want to be? We'll still have a Quinn on the board just up against a lone Samira? Or do we want to be a little bit greedier here? I just feel like even with the 2 champion strengths in hand, if we just have a little bit more time, we should be fairly safe. Like, what if we keep the bird back and then we look to make it rain next turn, and then we can use the bird to kind of pick off some of these 1-health units? I think that's pretty safe. He does get the stylish shot this way, but I think our health total's fine now. And then he missed out on an all-out. Okay.
Scouting ahead.
Let's pull that back. There's no reason to attack with Quinn into this board. Actually, that was incorrect, right? He could have blocked with the pull shark. That was just wrong. I had in my head, it's like we're going to attack with the Quinn and he's going to block with the pull shark and we're not going to deal any damage unless things just go completely wrong. But that was wrong, right? We're kind of missing out on it now. It's a little bit safer in a sense, I guess, that our Quinn isn't really involved in combat, but I don't really like how that played out. We probably should just send her in. Alright, no Fizz from the opponent. We should be able to champion strength now. We got the trifecta. That's as strong as you can get, my friends. Strong as you can get. Oh, no, are you kidding me? Oh, man. So close. Well, that's on us. We could have tried to prevent a little bit more damage. Well, the stylish shot getting in that point of damage wasn't what killed us there. It's not that he actually hit a plunder, but he was playing towards the Pandemonium. It had been in his hand the whole time. I'm trying to think if we prevented every damage we could that game. We got pretty close. I don't feel like we sat through any combats to where we didn't block. And then I feel we also blocked the biggest unit every time. It was just, well, there was that one combat, right, where we put the Quinn bird out in the middle. Huh. That's what it comes down to, though. That's tough. All right, next battle, though. Get rid of this Island Navigator. We're up against the Samira Jinx deck. Very similar to the Fizz deck. I think this is actually just worse than the Fizz deck, but people play it. People like to play Jinx, you know. All right, battle time. The champion strength returns. But it's kind of cute and nice starting off with the double attune and having the form up in hand. I don't think we're going to play it this turn, but it's neat to have it. This is it should be reminiscent of Worlds when champion strength only cost 8 mana, and everyone was going all in with the attunes and with the ways to just build up the mana so you could pop that thing off on turn 5. Right, not bad, not bad. I'm gonna form up through this. I like keeping the units on board. The opponent should have like a really tough time actually coming in and killing a Quinn. And she's the only unit right now that we're actually interested in protecting. And so this is kind of one of these classic spots to where if you don't get the kill as you play the combat trick, we get to deal the extra damage. Feels pretty nice.
Remember, we're the ones who make progress happen.
Curious if he ever battles here. Like, the thought I had in my head was like, well, I don't really care if we just come out here and trade away a unit. And so if we trade away against a Forge Chief, I think that that's okay. But now that this has kind of come together, we don't have the space to get the Quinn Bird on board, which would actually be pretty fantastic against these Flame Chompers. I think it kind of is what it is. I'm not willing to heavy metal our own unit, right? You can heavy metal your own guys just to get that Quinn Bird, but that doesn't strike me as enough. So maybe we didn't think that one through enough. I just assumed we'd be making a trade on the Forge Chief, but I guess as we have 1 million units on the board, that doesn't entirely make sense.
Not on my work site, bub.
Did it get excited? Sure. So are we going to get the chance to champion strength next turn? I think we might. I guess a lot of that depends on the opposing hand as to where if you can burst speed or fast speed flip this Jinx. We're still just okay here, right? We can champion strength. That'll protect all of our units from the death rocket. Like, I definitely don't want to just be losing 4 dudes here. And then he's not going to have the time to respond to that.
All part of the plan. I just made up.
So he doesn't have to block everybody, but he's going to take a healthy chunk of damage, and then he can't block with Jinx. And so we've almost got him lethal at this point. Everybody's going to have full health again, and so our well, I guess everyone having full health isn't as big of a deal since our our units only have the 1 health, but I think we're still in a pretty good spot. We just need 2 of these units to connect. And I don't entirely remember the removal suite in this deck. Like a single Mystic Shot would be good enough. He has 5 cards, though. There's no way he's going to spew out his hand and get this Death Rocket. Said Quinn. I'm not planning on making scout attacks. I plan on just attacking, but it depends on what they add.
Still heart, steady aim.
Can you burst out all these cards? You can rummage, and like this is getting to be a point where it would be a pretty good Death Rocket for them, right? But you can rummage and discard 2. That would be 3 of the cards, and then he would need like either a burst. Ooh, he's lining up the pigeon to do it. So he can definitely rummage out of this to get a Death Rocket. But that has to be the card in hand. All right. Wasn't enough. GG. A little sloppy in that one, but victory unlocked at the end. Ooh, that's scary. Scary how good Jinx is. I still don't think I like the deck as much as playing with just the Samira Bilgewater instead of the Samira Jinx, but it's like once you see her hit the board, it's so scary. It's like I think that deck is like 1 discard card away from being good. Like in the formats of old, and having access to Draven and everything made such a big difference. Having your own only discard cards be Rummage and Get Excited and the bear, the 2/2 for 2, it doesn't strike me as just being enough. Like I don't want to play Grim Discarder or whatever that dum is called. I don't really want him being a part of my game plan. The Grim Discarder, as he's called. All right, another round of Fizz. I get to battle with you, my friend. See how he taps down. It's like you're thinking of heavy metal in terms of they add Samira, you have the way to just kill her. If he spent his mana, we would have come in and definitely tried to kill something. But without them spending any mana, I'm not going to go for it. Now this is kind of tough. The actual preferred unit here is going to be the Fleet Feather Tracker, but I don't really want to overbank like 1,000,000 mana, and I don't want to spend a heavy metal when he's already got like spells in hand. So I think we have to add the Vanguard Sergeant. Next turn we'll add in the Island Navigator and just kind of go from there. I mean, Fizz isn't a gigantic threat at this point. And again, it's kind of nice. We talked about it a little bit as you make scout attacks. Just imagine that we attack an opponent blocks with Fizz. Then we form up the Solari Soldier. Then it gets to attack again with the +2/+2. It's always better than a single attack. All right, I don't think the Shell Shocker is worth saving. We have so many cards in hand that are just going to let us refill that I'm not quite willing to take the Protect there. Wow, that seems horrifically bad for opponent. They just have to have a bunch of like, they just have to have a bunch of like Burblefish. I wasn't thinking of Shelly and Burblefish. I thought I'm used to the Powder Pandemonium version now, but I was feeling like he had to have a lot of Powder Pandemonium kind of cards. So do we want to leave Quinn at home? He's most certainly going to Stylish Shot, but he's not going to add... Oh, let's just pass. I need to get better about this, finding the kind of post-combat spots to add our units to the board.
We'll find our enemies wherever they hide.
All right, looking strong. Do we want to drop the tracker now? We're going to play 4 Demacia this turn. 4 Demacia should be enough to just end the game. But we'll have 8 mana after the Fleet Feather tracker, and so we can play it and then still have mana to form up. So if we try in 4 Demacia, then he tries to spike a Valor or something, we still have the tools we need to protect through it.
Stand strong.
All right, that's a lot of scouts, my dude. That's a lot of scouts. All right, so we're gonna hook the Shelly with the bird. That should be fairly safe at this point. Shelly doesn't grow through her own abilities, and so if he wants to throw away a Fizz or a Samira in these combats, that's okay. I can't imagine they're able to flip Samira this round, so I think we're safe in those terms. Right? It's so disastrous if they have some kind of angle to where they get a rally after they do all this shit. It should just be way too many cards. They don't have the mana for it. All right, so he's got 1 mana left, and he needs 2 spells for Shelly. And so you could have a Warning Shot and a 1-cost card to get a second Shelly activation, but I don't think it's really worth playing around. I think I just want to... Well, I guess the Soldier taking down Samira is good enough.
Don't hold anything back. I won't.
Alright, so yeah, the bird can't survive this. We'll take down Samira with the combat trick. I did want to stop and think if we would rather just heavy metal her away. I don't think it matters. Maybe we should have, since the heavy metal doesn't really kill anything. Now that the Fizz is flipped and the Samira's flipped, just take the post-combat heavy metal and save the combat trick for another turn. I guess Burblefish are a reason to to change that line of thought. I just assumed opponent was done playing cards because they spent all their mana, but that Burblefish comes through crazy sometimes. Alright, GG though. Whew. Feels good, man. Playing with the old scouts. I miss it. I miss it. The different varietals over the days with your Cythrias and your Cataclysms and your Stony Suppressors, all depending on what the meta forms up. And it's always been one of these wild decks as to where there's many formats to where Scouts was just the best deck, but nobody played it. Like, that's another thing that's been pretty wild to me in terms of Runeterra, as to where you'll have these formats to where, like, Pirates was probably the best deck. Like, pre-rotation, Pirates was probably the best deck for literally the previous year, but it would never, like, breach as to being the top deck in terms of play rate. It was always sitting, like, oftentimes outside of the top 5, and it's just wild seeing things like that happen to where the literal best decks in the game just don't get played. Alright, well, opponent's got a spear. We'll just go ahead, drop our Durandi Sculptor. He's going to attack, and he's not going to be able to challenge us, so we'll be a little sloppy. As we say, we need to find these spots. Oh, he just doesn't attack. Interesting. Interesting. We're going to pop off on that thing. And then we need to build up to this champion strength. It's going to be... we could play it on turn 6, but that's going to be the opposing attack token. But we're definitely getting this board built up to where opponent shouldn't have an easy time dealing with our stuff. So we have the option to, say, attack with the Speller unit. Maybe this is okay. It's going to be 3 turns before we get to the... let's just leave it at home. It's going to be 3 turns before we're able to play the champion strength. But as I kind of stopped to think about that, it's like, well, we can make this attack and put the 2 damage on it, and we're trying to envision being able to kill this unit a little bit later. But if he's just going to come in and put his darkened spear onto the unit, then we just fall into problems there anyways. Now this is one that could be a bit of a mistake. We do have the Vanguard Sergeant in hand, and so we have the potential to play the 4 Demacia on this next turn. Right, if we take the 3 bank here next turn, we don't have the mana to play both Vanguard Sergeant and the spell, but I mean, I think this is fine. We got the full board. Crash in for a bit here. Gonna follow back up with the Vanguard Sergeant, and then we'll try and just kill him with the Champion Strength next turn.
A Demacian soldier is worth 10 foes.
Give me them stats, please. That does it. GG. On to the final battle. On to that game 8. Good stuff. That's another matchup that can be pretty challenging against the Aatrox Vayne if they're able to get in that spot where they have the Darken Quick Attack. Not the Darken Spear, it's the Darken... Not the Darken Lodestone. There's so many choices. The Darken Harp. There we go. If they're able to get the Harp onto a challenger and really just pick and choose how the combats go, we really start to struggle. That was that game would have been entirely different if that Darken Spear was a Darken Harp. We were just luckily able enough to get enough width to go around it. But all right, final battle, our 3rd battle up against Teemo Tristana. Nobody bringing the matchups we were actually looking for with this thing, right? As we said, we're looking to play against stuff like Deep, looking to play against stuff like Darkness. Just didn't see it anywhere. But again, it's one of the kind of interesting things with the game. I'm curious if we go to the runeterra.ar real quick. Should be able to get here this way. I'm curious what the current meta share is for this Tristana deck. Nasus is up at top because Mage and Bay put out a video, but the play rate's at 5%. That's all you really need to see. And so, again, it's kind of odd that you see that you see so much Tristana, but it's the way the breaks come at you sometime. I messed up the sizing on everything. Let's shrink up this a little bit. I'm going to add in the Shell Shocker. Call it a day. If the opponent's turn 2 play wasn't Grumble Slug, we would have been able to make an attack this turn. It's what turned up, so it is what it is. We'll look to get Misfortune down a couple turns from now, and she'll present us with some good hooks. Okay, not a bad round, not a bad round. Durandi Sculptor comes in, and then Misfortune likely going to be attacking next turn as well. Always sweet when she can attack unblocked. So now we play Misfortune, opponent plays a unit. We have the 2 challengers on board, so she should be pretty free to swing in. Say, all right, opponent, what unit do you want to lose? Ooh, the Combat Cook. Very limited in what they can select here. Very easy for them to miss on their options. But still pretty good combat, no complaints here. Chunking in for a bunch of damage. An opponent isn't getting to do what they want, right? Opponent wants to have a fully wide board, and they're having to go tall here, adding in the Combat Cook, and then if you want to add in, just one other big play this round, not what you're trying to do. But interesting spot here. I just kind of had in my head that we were just going to be taking this turn playing the Vanguard Sergeant and the next turn playing 4 Demacia, but I think I really like the Quinn here. We already have the combat trick in hand, and we have a 1 health unit on the opposing side of the board, so we should be able to crash in pretty safe. And so we'll do this thing to where we open with the scout attack, and then we get to maybe play form up, maybe play in another unit, and then get that second attack in on the turn. Should be strong. All the form ups.
Still heart, steady aim. Love ya.
That's juicy. That's juicy right there. We might be able to just kill him with form up here. Getting that surprise 4 damage in. Our unit size doesn't line up well to pull that off, but we should be actually dealing combat damage with 2 units and potentially getting the kill here. Right, so if he blocks Misfortune and Quinn, and then we give +2/+2 to our other units, that's going to be enough for the lethal. I don't think we have to play around things like single combat. People typically don't play it. The Demacia version tends to play like 1 or 2 copies of Group Shot, and then Cataclysms, Buster Shots. Not really scary cards in the middle of combat here. But not a bad set of battles. A nice 75% win rate for the 1 year constructed anniversary, if you will. We can pull this up and talk about it a little bit more. But again, I feel like we had a pretty good run in these games as to where I'm having trouble getting the deck back up. Hang on. That Tristana match isn't particularly good. The Aatrox Vayne deck isn't particularly good, but we were able to take down victory either way. And I think that is kind of one of the perks to playing a champion strength-based deck is you always have that really high-powered thing to where it doesn't even require your opponent to stumble. It's just if you both kind of like board stall and build up a collection of units and don't really attack each other, then champion strength is just kind of the ultimate trump card in a lot of these places. And so it's got a lot of real raw power to it. It's arguably just the most powerful card in the game right now. And so you can see in a lot of those games to where we weren't particularly far ahead. You know, we just had a board full of shitty units and we're able to crush through with the champion strength. And so even though you are a bit of an underdog in some of these matchups, you aren't ever just kind of completely blown out. So there's a lot of strength and a lot of power there. But again, we didn't play against things like Deep. We didn't play against things like Darkness. We didn't play against things like Karma Sett. These are all matchups that are pretty strong for us. And as you're looking towards the Runeterra Open, or as we have the best of 3 gauntlets this week, if you're just trying to pick up some trophies or buys or whatever, you need to really kind of stop and think about what you're expecting to see and what you're looking to ban. And so if you're expecting to run up against a lot of these lineups that have something like Deep and Karma Sett and Darkness or Seraphine, then this is a deck that you can most certainly take and have a fair amount of success against those, even if the opponent kind of follows the idea as to where Tristana is the best deck in the format. I need to play that, and then I'm going to play Seraphine, and then I'm going to play Deep because I like to play dumb cards. Then you can also have a bit of success against that as well as you're carrying out a deck like Scouts, but the earlier end of the meta, the lower end of the meta, to where you're starting to see a lot of things like the aggro decks. This is a deck that always struggled against things like Pirates. It's winnable, but it's not one of your great matchups. But then the places as to where it really hurts is if you're playing against something like Varus, playing against Pantheon, playing against Alawi, those just big bruiser style decks that are able to overwhelm through your units for like 10 damage in 1 attack. If that's what you're kind of expecting to see in the meta, I don't really recommend Misfortune in that space. But you know, as a ladder grinder, always good. We had a lot of success today. If you're looking to get a little nostalgic on the formats of old, this is a nice one to brush the dust off as well and get you some good and fun games in. And so that is going to do it for us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and you had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.